What if the law and order president who turned the immigration system into his personal torture chamber for migrants daring to fight deportation suddenly watched his hand-picked hammer? Lindsay Halligan, the Virginia stooge slotted as U.S. attorney to hunt deep state witches, get her prosecutorial pins knocked out by a federal judge so fed up with the farce she dismissed the government's star witnesses as zero credibility, exposing a 6-year-old final order that never finalized, leaving Kilmar Abrego Garcia one step from asylum or a ticket to Costa Rica instead of Liberia's limbo. Imagine Donald J. Trump, the 79-year-old stable genius who deported Abrego Garcia to El Salvador's Secot hellhole in March 2025 despite a 2019 withholding order, only to haul him back in June after Supreme Court smackdowns and a midnight 9-0 ruling. Then slap him with fabricated Tennessee human smuggling charges as vindictive prosecution. Payback for daring to sue for his rights. Now staring down Judge Polizini's gavel in Greenbelt, Maryland, where her November 20th, 2025 evidentiary hearing eviscerated ICE's word salad testimony, signaling release or relief as the ultimate rebuke to his retaliatory regime. And here's the satirical sledgehammer that should shatter every MAGA mirage. As Abrego Garcia, Maryland husband, father of 3 U.S. citizens, sheet metal apprentice living legally under non-removal for gang threats back home, sits in Virginia's ICE vice. Ziniz's frustration boils over at the DOJ's dodges on Costa Rica, his preferred haven, ready to welcome, versus Liberia, a punitive African afterthought. Her no tolerance for gamesmanship, a thunderclap that echoes the Fourth Circuit's twice. Affirmations and Supreme Court's unanimous facilitate return fury, proving Trump's deportation machine isn't efficiency. It's enmity, a cruel con where due process dies in detention cells, and the only final order is the one ordering his abuse to end. America, this isn't justice. It's jihad. A judicial jihad where the tough on crime tyrant tortures a family man for fleeing MS. 13 threats, only to face a federal bench that's finally fed up with the farce, dismissal looming like a dawn of dignity in a dark night of despotic detention. The Greenbelt courtroom on November 20th, 2025, wasn't just a hearing. It was a high-noon showdown in the theater of the absurd, where Trump's immigration inquisition, that iron-fisted farce of family separations and fast-track flights to foreign prisons, collided with the Constitution like a deportation plane hitting a headwind of habeas corpus. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the 30-year-old Salvadoran sheet metal apprentice who'd built a life in Maryland, married to U.S. citizen Jennifer Vasquez Sura, father to 3 American-born kids, compliant with annual ICE check-ins under a 2019 withholding of removal that shielded him from MS. 13 gangland graves back home, sat stoic in Virginia's ICE cage, his fate hinging on Judge Polizini's piercing gaze and pounding gavel. Zini's, that unflinching federal jurist who's twice been affirmed by the Fourth Circuit and unanimously backed by a midnight Supreme Court scolding for Trump's botched banishment, didn't mince words or minutes. For hours of evidentiary evisceration were the DOJ's parade of witnesses, ICE's John Cantu, DHS's Drew Ensign, a smattering of State Department suits, shuffled to the stand only to be shredded as empty word salad. Their testimony zero in credibility, a zilch so zesty it zipped past. Zero into negative evidentiary equity. It started with Cantu, the enforcement and removal operations honcho whose sworn declaration promised a detailed discussion, with Costa Rica, Garcia's chosen haven, Spanish-speaking safety net off Nicaragua's nose, where family visits flow free and MS. 13 memories fade. But under Zini's crossfire, Cantu crumbled like a cookie in coffee. He'd never read his own filing, possessed no personal knowledge of State Department parleys with San Jose or Monrovia, couldn't explain why Costa Rica vanished from the table post-Tennessee indictment, fabricated human smuggling beef from a 2022 traffic stop, dormant for 903 days until Garcia's deportation debacle demanded a distraction. Preference, Ensign mumbled, as if Liberia, a West African wildcard 6,000 miles from Maryland's embrace, was a mere menu option, not punitive exile. Zini's exasperation erupted. It is so odd to me. The timeline doesn't make sense. Your witnesses know nothing about anything. Odd. Understatement of the administration. This was orchestrated odyssey of obstruction, a retaliatory road map, where Garcia's civil suit success. Habeas hammering the administrative error deportation to El Salvador's Secot torture tank in March. 7 months of mega-prison misery amid 200 alleged Tren de Aragua terrorists triggered the Tennessee trapdoor. Charges conjured from a stale speeding stop to justify the jail time that justified the Liberia lunacy. The farce fractured further on the final order phantom. Garcia's 2019 immigration ruling by Baltimore Judge David Jones, granting withholding from El Salvador's gang gauntlet, but silent on outright removal. A procedural pothole Zini's probed like a prosecutor at a plea deal. No docketed deportation decree, no exhausted administrative avenue. Despite DHS's decade-long dithering, Garcia's check-ins clockwork compliant, his Maryland life a lawful limbo until Trump's tantrum tore it asunder. The government's gasp? Sufficient due process. A gasp so gaseous it gagged the gallery. Zini's retorting with rulings that ring like rebuke. You can't fake it till you make it. There is no order of removal in the record. Jones's oversight, perhaps a clerical crevasse, perhaps a closed file forgotten, now fortifies Garcia's fortress, the administrative abyss swallowing the DOJ's deportation dreams whole. Ensign's evasion on Liberia's temporary humanitarian overture? A temporizing tease, a day, a week, a month? Garcia's lawyers lacerated, leaving him in limbo, a punitive ping-pong from San Salvador's Secot, where he endured 7 months of sensory deprivation and solitary screams, to Tennessee's trumped-up trial, set for Q1 2026, vindictive prosecution motion pending before Waverly Crenshaw, who's already flagged reasonable likelihood of retaliation. Satirical sting. Trump's tough on crime turns tough on clerks, a deportation derby where final orders float like fog. Halligan's ghost in the machine manifesting manifest injustice. Emotional elegy. This isn't legalese. It's laceration, a father's freedom filched for fleeing MS. 13 menace, his U.S.-born brood bereft, while bureaucrats bicker over banishment to backwaters. Vasquez, Sura's vigil, prayer vigils at Greenbelt gates, portraits of her imprisoned partner, personifies the pain, a Maryland matriarch marshaling might against the machine that mangled her man's mandate. Vivid vignette, Greenbelt's granite grandeur, Zini's bench a bastion of bemusement as Cantu crumples under cross-X, zero, echoing like a zero-sum verdict. Garcia's gaze steady through the glass partition, his family's faces flickering in the gallery like ghosts of due process denied. The hearing's heat? A harbinger of habeas triumph. Zini's no tolerance for gamesmanship, a thunderclap that thwarts the third country tango. Liberia's temporary, a temporizing trapdoor to more torment. The rot radiates from Richmond's revenge route. Halligan's hasty hire as EDVA enforcer, Trump's Virginia vassal vaulted to vendetta vanguard against enemies like Comey, canned for Russia probes, and James, indicting the Klan. Her prosecutorial pins pulled by procedural perversions that profane the Fifth. Fitzpatrick's 11 flaws fester, tainted FBI-fed attorney-client filth, Halligan's hallucinatory homilies on Burden and Fifth, Miranda Mirage and MAGA mist, a perversion parade parading process. The 12th sin? Cut and paste conjuration, 3-count rejection renumbered to 2 without quorum, a 4-person's frantic scribble subbing for Sacred 12. Comey's motion malls, grand jury never approved, violates 5th, dismissal with prejudice. The correction? Contempt con, 4-person fall guy for felony fumble, transcripts silence screaming sham. Littman's laceration from the gallery. Worst DOJ thing ever. Flabbergasting. They screwed it up so badly. The South Carolina imports independent incantation? Incinerated by Halligan's podium confession. O'Grady's, how did this work? A howler that howls hypocrisy. Bondi's ratifications? Rat traps snapping. Her stand behind scrolls co-conspiring constitutional crucifixion. Trump's thumbprint? Smeared in Sharpie. Case cradle and oval obsessions. Halligan's hit higher. Bondi's backstop blessings. Irony inferno. Lawman. Lawyering 91 felonies. Fog now fogs felonies form. Cut and paste cabal. Conjuring charges clerical chaos. Deep state. Delirium dines devotees. Halligan hors d'oeuvre banquet bungle. The tide turns. 2026 midterms mobilize. Democrats' 9-point turnout torrent Trump's tyranny. Grand jury grievance endures. Justice deferred devours defer.